and welcome everybody. So today we continue the Gambit series, and Evans Gambit is our topics. Today is the second lesson, and we are going to work out the great games played by Paul Morphy against De Riviere from Paris match 1858. So once again, Morphy is playing the Evans Gambit, and Evans Gambit was one of the most dangerous weapons by Morphy. After e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4 and bishop c5, Morphy played b4. So black accepts the sacrifice, bishop takes b4, c3, and in that game, instead usual move which we looked in our previous lecture, bishop c5, bishop a5, his opponent decided to play bishop c5. So today's theory recommends even here immediately play d4. But Morphy first of all finished short castling, intending the d4 later on. d6. White immediately challenged the center. d4. So what is the main point of the short castling move? So we played short castling, and after d4, e takes d4 and c takes d4, black is not able to play bishop b4 check. So here, right now, after e takes d4, c takes d4, bishop b4 check is not possible anymore. So black has to move his bishop to b6. What kind of compensation white has in this position? Great center, just for 1 pawn. So bishop from c1 could be developing on b2 or other direction to the g5. So knight is having quite great place on c3. Queen in many situations could go to b3, building the strong battery over the f7 pawn. As well, after knight f6, white is open up the position after e4, e5. So this line exactly with a slightly different moves order we saw at the end of the last lecture. And once again, Morphy's opponent allowing e5. So in that game, black prepared some new answer at that time. So instead capturing on e5, which happened in the previous game, and bishop a3 when black's king was killed in the center, in that game, black decided to try to keep the center close and to push d6, d5, locking the dangerous diagonal for white's bishop. But this advance is not the one called for solve black's positional problems. Definitely, Morphy is not going to move his bishop back. He's capturing f6. Open up the position completely and trying to organize the strong attack over the black's king, which is still situated in the center. D takes e4. Now with the next move, white is completely destroying black's king side, and black's king almost losing the castling right. So black's king now could castle only to the queen side. Rook g8. So everything goes smoothly. Black's king side is totally exploded. Rook e1 check. Black has to prevent somehow from from the white's attack, but how? Bishop e6. White immediately pushed the pawn. d4, d5. It's not just that white is going to win the material. Black is having here the counter attacking move. Queen f6. At the same time, black is intending white's knight on c3 and ready for long castling. Seems like position becomes very, very unclear. Even pin over the e file, not allowing white to reach completely winning position. So we have to find the way how to destroy black's counterattack. Morphy choose the best continuation here. Instead protecting the knight on c3, he's immediately aiming black's queen. As well, the bishop from g5 prevents black's king from leaving the center. So now the long castling is not possible. White is sacrificing the knight on c3, but at the same time regains the sacrificed piece, and black's king is in hopeless situation. Let's see how black got made it in just a few moves. So black's king is totally opened and still in the center. Queen d7 is the most direct threat which black has to parry. So queen d3 only answer. E takes f7, king takes f7. Everything looks great. So if our knight would come to e5, the game would finish immediately. The idea of clearing the square immediately comes to our mind, and definitely Morphy found it in a few seconds. Rook e7 check, greatest solution. So now in case of knight takes e7, we are completing our combination by knight e5, and the queen is gone. After king takes g7, knight takes g3, black is completely lost. He's queen down. So black has to move his king. The rook on e7 is untouchable. The only move is king g6. Queen e1, not only intending queen e6 with a checkmate, but also threatening to play rook d1, exploiting the hanging position of the queen on d3. Queen d5. Black is trying to protect from the direct mating threat, but black's queen is bouncing around the board, desperately trying to divert the white's pieces, alas without such success. Rook d1, completing the development. So this is a dreaming position for white. White is having control over the center files, so d file and e file, all under white's control. So black cannot move with his queen. Knight d4 is the only chance. All white pieces now are very harmonically attacking. There is a very strong threat coming up. How would you continue the attack? Usually when we are attacking, we have to try to get rid of the only defense or pieces which are preventing us from reaching the decisive threats, and this knight should be removed. Rook takes d4 with last sacrifice. The black's last hope is gone. By this simply move, white eliminates the only piece that was able to protect the king from the further decisive check. Bishop takes d4, and after queen b1 check, look at that, black's king is totally hopeless against the white's threats. So only move is king h5. Definitely move like queen f5 doesn't work For many reasons. One of the reasons is just simple move. Rook e6 check. Pay attention that black's king cannot capture the rook. The queen is pinned. Bishop f6 doesn't work. Still, we continue capturing all black pieces, and with the next move, the queen is gone. Any better for black, so black has to move his king. When king is coming to h5, we are coming with the queen. Queen takes h7 check. And after king g4, okay, we have different options how to checkmate black's king. Very nice checkmate with the pawn. Quite brilliant in this checkmate with the queen. In any case, black's strategy trying to close the center after d6 d5 move number 10 was not successful this time. So Morphy, using the same principles which we studied in our previous lecture, opened the center, destroying the black's king side, totally opened the position when black's king was still stuck in the center, and brilliantly finished his attack. Okay, so now we continue with the next game, also played by Paul Morphy. Okay, now we continue with the next game, when Paul Morphy played against his brother in the New Orleans match in 1849. And this game also started with Evans gambit. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, b4, bishop takes b4, c3, bishop c5. And in that game, Morphy immediately started with challenging black's center after d4. E takes d4, c takes d4. In my previous comment I said that one of the best resources for black is to play bishop b4, not losing time for playing bishop b6, the move which was chosen by Alonso Morphy. After short castling, it's quite difficult for black already to organize a counterplay. White's center is too powerful, so black cannot move the knight anymore because e4, e5 is coming. The outcome of d6 and knight c3 we just studied in the two previous games. So in that game, black opts for knight a5 move, threading the bishop on c4, trying to send this bishop away from the diagonal a2 g8, and prevents white's aiming of the on the weakest spot on black's position, the f7 pawn. Bishop d3. White has a strong position in the center. It should compensate, of course, the sacrifice of pawn. And here, instead of playing something like d6, black decided immediately to challenge white's center after d5. I believe black just started to underestimate white's resources. Black is lacking in development, thus the game opens in white's favor, of course. So Morphy immediately plays e takes d5, open up the position. So all now files and diagonals all are ready for the attack against the black's king. Queen takes d5. So next move is quite easy to predict. Morphy immediately plays his bishop on the most aggressive outpost, preventing blacks from further castling. So bishop a3. Quite difficult for black already to complete his development. The bishop is preventing black's king from castling on the king side. So short castling is not possible for a while. Bishop e6. Black is attempting to cover the d5 square and to castle his king to the queen side. where the monarch could feel quite safe. But of course, no time for doing that anymore. Knight c3. One more piece comes with the threat. So, black's queen on d5 is aiming. After queen d7, white has no time for playing rook e1, because black just complete his development after long castling. So, what do we have in our mind? White has all his pieces in almost ideal position. The question, how to continue? Breaks through the most defensive spot should come in that situation. d4, d5, exactly according to the Morphy's rules. When we have develop an advantage, we have to open up the center files and to bring our heavy artillery, the rooks, to the game. Bishop takes d5. Black has to accept the pawn, but what's the problem now? Knight takes d5, queen takes d5. After just one check, look at black's king. Black king has no way to escape. After king d8, white is simply deciding the game. How? Just moving the bishop. So where to move the bishop? Almost any square on the board leads to the winning position. But I'd like this move. So I would like to tell you that after rook e1 check already black resigned, because he understood that Morphy would do something like bishop c4, intending the queen, so almost force black to capture. After rook takes d1, black's king in the very bad situation. So look at great domination of white pieces, especially rooks on the open files. And king c8, the game is finished immediately after rook e8 check. So, we studied another great, very nice game played by Morphy. And I would like to move to the next game, which was played in 1816 in the Vienna match between the future first world champion William Steinitz against Strauss, which started with the same brilliant Evans gambit. So, e4, e5. Now you can enjoy how the father of positional chess, Steinitz, played also so strong tactical chess, like Morphy, like Anderson, like his teachers. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, and b4. Bishop takes b4, c3, bishop a5. Steinitz continuing his standard. I believe that in 1816 this was the best continuation, and even today this is one of the strongest. E takes d4, and white is ready to sacrifice one more pawn, short castling. In that game, black decided to accept the pawn. So, black is taking one more pawn on c3, but allowing white to start the direct attack and to keep the initiative after queen b3. So white immediately looking at black's weakest spot, f7. Once again, knight h6 doesn't work in that situation, because bishop takes h6. Queen f6 is also quite dangerous after e4, e5. Similar position we studied in our previous lecture when we watched the game between Fischer and Fine. So in that game, Steinitz opponent decided to play Queen E7. What is the weakest? Why this move is not so great? Because this is allowing white to bring his bishop to the active position on a3. Bishop a3, d6, and now white is taking 1 pawn back. Knight takes c3, but also bringing the knight to the strong outpost. Intending knight d5. Let's say in case of knight f6, white could play knight d5, and after knight takes d5, e takes d5, black's position is totally collapsing. Why? If knight is going somewhere to d8, then just bishop hanging with a double attack, white is gaining the extra piece, a5 bishop. In case of queen d8, white could open up the position after e5 or after knight takes f6, queen takes c6 and e5. Black is a very, very dangerous situation. All white bishops are looking towards the black's king side. If you accept the sacrifice, let's say that black's king would never castle, so I just could continue like rook d1 or bishop, then bishop d5, bishop b5. Also almost impossible will be to move black's king from the center, despite the fact that white is having 2 or 3 pawns down. Black's position extremely dangerous. White is having very strong long-term initiative. So that's why black decided immediately to get rid of this nasty knight. Bishop takes c3, queen takes c3, and played knight e5. g7 pawn was under attack. Knight takes e5 and queen takes e5. So big question now. Definitely white is not going to exchange the queens after queen takes e5. In that case we have to find the best place for our queen. Steinitz decided to play queen c2, intending bishop b2. After knight f6 and bishop b2, his opponent played queen c5, and this move was quite serious mistake, which allowed white now to create almost decisive threats on in the center and on the king side. How? What is the problem with that move, queen c5? The answer is quite simple. White's main threat in the whole situation like that, when we have great development advantage, is trying to open up the center. So white is intending e4, e5 at any case. The problem is that after e4, e5, black cannot capture the pawn. Why? In that case, the black's queen on c5 is totally unprotected. White is coming with a great shot, bishop takes f7, which is quite a big shock for black's queen. So look at the queen. The queen is totally unprotected. White is winning immediately. So what does it mean? It means that knight has to go away. Knight d5, and white is playing e takes d6, gaining the time. Also, black's king in a very difficult situation now, because the check is coming. After c takes, queen e4 check, intending the knight, force black to play bishop e6. White is continue his attack with rook a to d1. Knight is under a threat. Where to move? Knight c7. And position is completely opened. White is having two bishops. But how to create the decisive threat? I believe after not so long consideration, Stanitz decides to continue attack with destroying just black's king side. Bishop takes e6, knight takes e6, bishop takes g7, so 1 pawn is gone, and black's king still cannot castle. Rook g8, and queen takes h7. Very nice move. Black rook cannot capture white's bishop, since after queen h8 check and queen takes a8, white is winning the full rook. Knight cannot touch the bishop because after queen takes g8, white is getting the huge material advantage. So with the next move I could choose which piece to capture, g7 knight or rook on a8. But the biggest problem is that long castling is not possible. Why? Because black's king and queen on the same file, rook c1, wins the queen at once. So black has no choice. He has to keep his king in the center, and Strauss played here king e7, already intending rook takes g7. The next move is the greatest move of the greatest player. Instead looking for moves like queen h4 check or trying to play with the bishop somewhere to b2 or h6, Stanitz just completing his development and following the rules of Morphy, take control over the open files. So right now he is preventing the threat rook takes g7, because in that case the knight is pinned. So white is just simply answering queen takes g7. Black lost exchange for no compensation. Indeed, rook f to e1 looks like a blunder. I would like to explain you why. Because black played queen g5, intending at the same time the bishop on g7, and wow, bishop cannot move anymore since queen takes g2 checkmate. Looks like white missed something. I believe the Strauss was absolutely sure that his opponent overlooked this nice tactical. But Stanitz now came with a brilliant combination. Rook takes e6. This decisive sacrifice completely destroys black's position. So black cannot accept this sacrifice with the pawn. Why? Because after bishop h6, discovered check, the queen is gone. So this only move is king takes. Now white's queen, bishop and rook performing the last attack. Queen e4 check. Force black to go to d7. Once more pawn is gone. Queen takes b7 and white's attack is still continuous. King e6. Rook e1 check. where to go. The only way is king f5. Finally, white already could checkmate in one after queen e4. Indeed, for some reason, Stanis decided first of all to capture on f7. But this only keeps black in life for a few more moves. King g4, queen f3 check, and black's king is going to be mated after queen h3. This quite nice combination, starting with rook f to e1, move number 22, is a quite brilliant example of how deep already calculated Stanis in 80-60. So he was still very, very young, just in start of his brilliant chess career. And once again, what we were studying in that game, that fast development is a gives white in the Evans gambit strong initiative, which we can develop only by very energetic play, like happened in that game, like we studied from the Morphy games. Open up the center, free the diagonal and files for your rooks. Don't think about your pawns. Sacrifice the pawns for open up the position. Come with all your pieces closer to the black skin. Try to prevent the black skin from the castling. Trying to destroy black's position on the king side. All these ideas we studied, and all these ideas we repeating in the games we saw from Morphy, from Stanis. So, in our next lesson, I would like to show you the modern way of playing the Evans gambit. Just some examples from the modern players. How we are playing the Evans gambit in today's practice. Thank you very much for watching my lecture, and see you next time. Bye.